Hi, everyone. This is Lloyd Lewis, and I was so honored to be asked to provide a keynote address to you, and it's a real honor. I'm looking forward to making some remarks and comments about some great experiences I've had, and I hope that you enjoyed. What I'd like to talk about in this time with you is my experiences as a father, as an advocate, as the CEO of the ARC Thrift Stores, which I believe is the greatest privilege that I've had in my life, and talk about how I got involved in this work and why it's so important to me. My work with ARC Thrift Stores started with the birth of my wonderful son, Kennedy, who was born in 2003 with Down syndrome, and just a blessing to my life and in the life of my family and to the community. Will do everyone who has the great privilege of getting to know my son. When he was born, by the way, the doctor came into our hospital room and took him away from us for about an hour and came back to announce that he had no good news to tell us about our son. I thought maybe he died. I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "We suspect he has Down syndrome." When I asked him to explain where Down syndrome was, he said it was like mongols. So I threw him out of the room. Got some good nurses had good information. People with Down syndrome live with families, live with their families. They go to public schools, they participate in the community, and they contribute in many ways that this doctor apparently was uninformed of. That's where all of this started for me in 2003. Initially, I did scientific research advocacy with my friend Michelle C. That became the world's largest Down syndrome research institute at the Anschutz campus in Colorado, named for a neuroscientist I brought into the project. And when my best friend, Linda Cernick, the neuroscientist, passed away, I got recruited to the ARC Thrift Stores, where I hoped I could take my business skills and help people like my son by supporting the wonderful ARC advocacy chapters in Colorado. Here you see a new store opening with many employees with intellectual disabilities joining us. Some of my board, some of the core people, the community that we are serving. I am very proud to say that over my 20 years, we've increased the number of stores we have from 17 to 36, doubling the number of our stores and doubling the revenue per store. And again, this started with the birth of my son, Kennedy, who you see in this photo. Prior to ARC, I had been a CFO for a high-tech, ultimately sold to Micron. I had come out to Colorado with IBM following graduation with an MBA from the University of Chicago. Prior to that, I was an analyst by a municipal investment firm in Philadelphia. So the world of intellectual disabilities was new to me when my son was born. But as soon as I became aware that he had Down syndrome, I made a solemn commitment to myself that I would do everything I could to help my great son, Kennedy, and to help everyone like my son. When I started at ARC in 2005, we had 10 employees with developmental disabilities. Today, we have 500 more employees with developmental disabilities. And I did it because as a father, I thought it was the right thing to do. But what I've also learned was it was a very smart business thing to do. Our company has been very successful following the introduction of this employment program. People with developmental disabilities love to work on teams. They love to contribute. They have very positive attitudes, almost to a person. They inspire their fellow employees. And when that happens, morale gets increased. Production increases, followed by an increase in revenue, followed by an increase in earnings. I would employ people with developmental disabilities on a large scale in any company that I would lead. It is one, the absolute right thing to do. And two, it is a very smart business thing to do. The core question that I often ask people is, why don't we employ and include people with intellectual disabilities? Why not them? I self-published a book with the co-author titled, Why Not Them? From what I learned by my experiences with my son and others with developmental disabilities. They are wonderful people who deserve the same opportunities and experiences as everyone in life, and their contributions are amazing. In the center picture, you see Heather, who typically greets people in one of our stores, typically with a stuffy that accompanies her. Here, you has a live dog helping her greet our customers. On the leftmost portion of this screen, you see Connie, a wonderful employee in our store in Southern Colorado, in the city of Pueblo. It was just an amazing employee who is beloved by her co-employees. There are many problems that still face people with intellectual disabilities. There's a high rate of abuse of people with intellectual disabilities, on the order of 80% for women, 40% multiple times, 40% of men. There's a very high rate unemployment rate for people with intellectual disabilities, on the order of 70 to 80%. There is a shortage of quality housing. There's a higher need of medical care and services. There is a need for more integration in public schools. But this unfair treatment of people with intellectual disabilities, the persistent stigma, the low expectations, the lack of pathways in our schools and in our corporations to include them, is something that I'm personally committed to addressing. And I know the wonderful art chapters of Colorado are very committed to that as well, and they inspire me. We are a business with a mission. We employ now over 500 people with intellectual disabilities, and our profits as a company fund 15 ARC advocacy chapters. We've grown that dramatically during my tenure, about $170 million in funding so far, 20 years into my tenure, versus about $25 million the 20 years before me. Over the next 20 years, we will double that again. It'll probably be well over $300 million. So we're very proud of that. Our program for people with intellectual disabilities, we focus on pathways for independence, pathways for dignity. We want to dignify the lives of people with intellectual disabilities in a way that, too often is not acknowledged. Here are some of our wonderful employees. We have Ryan, who works in one of our stores, and he's a longtime employee, maybe 10 plus years. And he called me one morning to say that he had a great idea for our store. He calls the president of this large company. I say, Ryan, what's your idea? And he says, he's in the Senate picture. He said he wanted to create a worldwide wrestling federation. He loves worldwide wrestling. I said, give it a shot. So he created this wonderful and beautiful display that sold out first day. And there was a time when you would walk into the store and you would ask you how you were doing. And unless you said the word great, he would hug you and repeat his question and hug you again until he got the word great as your answer. On the left-hand side is Elisa, who works in our corporate office. She is a wonderful employee. She has her own little business, Cozy Comforts, where she gets scarves and hats and sells them at Christmas time. Well, she's just a bright spot in our office. And on the right-hand side, seated is Marlene, who's a wonderful employee. If she gets your cell phone, she'll call you 20 times a day. And she's just a beautiful personality who is full of life and loves to contribute and loves to work in the store and just help as much as she can. So the lessons I've drawn in terms of how I lead our business and how I conduct myself in life is leading through empathy. I was recently at a management conference at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, one of the premier universities in America, where I was fortunate to be named a distinguished alumni in public service. At that managed conference, our keynoter was Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. And the first half of his keynote was all about his son, who had severe cerebral palsy and lost a couple of years prior to the conference. And he told us what he had learned from his experience with his son, which was empathy, which he applied to his customers, to employees, and generally in his life. The second half was about the cloud and AI, both of which Saudi have created. Saudi is also a distinguished alumni from the University of Chicago School of Business. We typically measure success in terms of financials or promotions or titles. I think a better measurement of success is in how many lives we change. That's the true measure of success. We merge very closely profit in our company with purpose and meaning. And I believe that we are substantially changing lives every single day, every day of the year. The mystified Adam, whose mother created with famous Adams Camp near Granby, Colorado, that provides therapy and venture camps for people with disabilities. I had lunch with Adam one day. He learned how to walk at age 6 in one camp. And he was working at one of our stores. We had pizza over lunch. And I asked him where his goal in life was. He said his goal in life was to be a policeman, become part of law enforcement. So I went back to our office to try to determine, was there some experience we could provide to Adam that he would find additionally fulfilling. And it happened to be working in our loss prevention department, where he's able to monitor computer screens to try to identify if there's any theft in our stores. So he's very proud of his role with us in loss prevention. On the very left-hand side of the screen is Aaron. He always wears these very cool hats. He must have 50 different hats like the one that you see on this screen. And I always kid him and tell him that I really need this hat. So we have fun teasing each other. So my promise as CEO, my promise in my life is the following: to always attempt to lead with integrity, to continue to hire inclusively from all parts of society, intellectual disabilities and other people needing employment, not always get the opportunity. I had been honored to become chair of 4 important organizations: the Colorado Bus Disability Coalition, the Last Community Foundation of Art and Integrated Housing for people with disabilities, Adams Camp, as I mentioned, doing prevention and therapy camps for people with IBD, and Best Buddies Colorado. And I'm also treasurer on 5 other boards, including the Art of the United States Foundation Board, to get an opportunity to help out nationally, and an international board, Inclusion International, with members in over 100 countries who are holding the World Congress that I will be attending in Sharjah, UAE. I'm honored to be part of all of this work, which I attribute to the work I do in my company, and the work that the chapters do that I support. And finally, a promise to lead this company dedicated to increasing funding of advocacy for people with intellectual disabilities. Most important in our chapters of Colorado. Every new market we open, we have 36 stores in Colorado. Our first store in Albuquerque is doing quite well. We're adding the second store in Albuquerque before year-end. And next year, we'll be opening our first store in Texas, in San Antonio, working in those markets to help increase funding and employment. In summary, this mission chose me, and in turn, I chose to lead this mission in my company. Again, I'm very proud of this opportunity I've been given. The work I've done means the world to me as a father of a wonderful young guy. Thank you so much.